We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrifice?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are sex people! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth. You're looking well.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. We have a film podcast.
We also have plans to see each other not long after recording. Is this true?
In the real world.
We've really transcended beyond the confines of a broadcast that's recorded online.
Yeah, we've transcended the confines of a podcast recorded online. That's well put. Do you think we could tell the humble listener what we're going to see, or do you think that could risk stepping on the toes of a future episode, dare I say?
Ooh, well, I mean, now that you said this, now I don't want to say, I guess, the movie, but we are going to see a movie that was released this weekend that we may have a guest for lined up.
I think so, and it'll be
pretty cool.
It will be pretty cool.
And the second of its kind.
I was just trying to think of how to phrase this, and I thought you were going to smack me for revealing that sort of info. But
no, I mean, I don't want to reveal the kind, but I just want to, just that a very cool guest is in the works for a movie that opened this weekend. So just, keep that in your noggin.
Yeah.
Until then, listen to
there.
what Trent's been eating most recently. Trent, what have you been eating most recently?
Well, Parth, you've no time for transitions nowadays, do you? You're all grown up roommate and / friend Anthony Graceffo, friend off the show, is listening. I apologize because the last thing I ate was one of his Pop-Tarts.
No!
Again, I haven't had a Pop-Tart in like a couple of years, dare I say, and so I was craving something sweet, and I saw it, and there was no turning back, and then I had one, and then
this other one's already out of the package.
At that point, the other one's just getting staler by the second, and so then
Trent, it would have been the crueler thing to not eat the second Pop-Tart,
and it would just be like leaving like a bloody handprint at the crime scene, rather than just getting rid of all of the packaging and, I'd say, increasing the chance of getting away with it, all in all. And so here's second Pop-Tart.
Whoa, it's half eaten in front of my eyes, mine own eyes.
Yeah. And what about you?
Well, Trent, my dad now has to go into New York 3 times a week for work, and so occasionally he comes back with like Krispy Kreme or a fun little snack from a fun little place.
Parth, something I love about you is that you have a soft spot for Krispy Kreme.
I love Krispy Kreme.
I mean, at the same time, who doesn't? But
there are people who don't. There are people who have, to my face, told me Dunkin' Donuts better.
Oh, that's like a laughable thing to say.
Yeah. But my dad came home yesterday with some goodies from Magnolia Bakery, and I had a blueberry crumble that happened to not be eaten yesterday.
But Magnolia Bakery is another spot I have a soft spot for. When I was like 13, like people would talk about that, and I like thought that it was like a rich kid like Golden Gate Bakery, like, but it's really just like has pretty good cupcakes. But a friend of the show, Jordan Sickfoos, introduced me to their banana cream pudding, and like that is one of like the best things I've ever had.
Friend of the show, Viraj Marathe, also my brother.
I know. I saw that kid. He looks like all grown up, speaking of you.
He's 16 now.
He's probably skipping transitions, too. Skipping class.
Ideally not. Viraj, stay in school if you're listening.
He was up late the other night preparing for Model UN.
Oh my god, you did literally just see him. We were shooting a short at my house that friend of the show, Jackson Clark, was directing. Much to everybody's chagrin.
Yeah, our collective chagrin.
Viraj used to make banana cream pies for our Thanksgiving. Like, he made mini ones, so like you would eat like 4 of them because you'd be like, "This is like not that much. Like, I'll just have one. Doesn't matter. It's not even anything." And you'd be like, "Wait, this tastes good," and then you'd have another, and then another, then another.
The multi-talented Viraj, it's like he has so many facets to his talent. We haven't talked about the fact that he's an excellent bakor, right?
He is a very good baker. Very good snickerdoodles, I would say, are his.
Oh gosh, how specified.
Well, what can you say? When you're good at something, never do it for free. But he tends to, you know?
And that's what separates Viraj from the Joker, which I would say is one of his best qualities, is that
It's the only thing that separates him from the Joker.
you are heavily influenced by the Joker, while Viraj resembles more, dare I say, the Cape Crusader, you know, the other side of that coin.
Not me, brain.
Cue the intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture.
Wait, so this week we had Ben Seresin, who was the cinematographer of such films as Unstoppable, Pain and Gain, World War Z, and of course our film for today, Adam Wingard's Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire.
Not Godzilla versus Kong. Godzilla X Kong, guys. These movies
yeah.
are very different.
Everyone will have to pardon me. I think I made that slip up early on.
It's okay.
But we all moved forward. We just crossed it out with the big X, as did this movie, because they're like still, I don't know, they're still fighting.
Well, Ben Seresin, very talented person and a very cool guest. Very cool guy, I would even say.
Very cool interviewee.
Yes. And again, as per usual, this is a two-part interview. First half, he talks a little bit about getting into the film industry and some really specific Godzilla X Kong stuff. So I don't really want to make you guys wait. Do I, Trent, or should we stop?
No, we shouldn't waste too much time. Yeah, this first episode's gonna be a lot of Godzilla X Kong, and then the next episode we'll talk about some other movies like Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, like The Mummy, and we'll just talk about.
But Trent, don't get them too excited. They'll go crazy.
That'll be next week. So enjoy this, Godzilla X Kong. And then a week from now, we'll talk about basically the remainder of Ben Seresin's like interesting
career,
in-depth filmography that includes like a bunch of cool films. Yeah, but in the meantime,
cue the interview. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with Ben Seresin. He's the cinematographer behind such films as Unstoppable, Pain and Gain, World War Z, and our film for today, Adam Wingard's Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me along.
So just to start off, what would you say your relationship with film was at a young age?
It's interesting. I actually initially at school, I developed quite a keen interest in acting, which was my initial path of interest into the industry. At school, I was in a few productions. I then went on to audition for a couple of television things freshly out of school. And during that time, I was fortunate enough to get some work with a local commercial production company in New Zealand. It was a fairly, still reasonably undeveloped industry relatively to say, US there at that time. But there was a bit of work going on, and I was lucky enough to work with these guys who seemed like Hollywood hotshots from where I stood. But got work as a production assistant, got to see the process, and observe acting in some, obviously limited manner. But what sort of stuck out of that from that time was it really planted a seed of interest in me for what really went on behind the camera, more so than any sort of performance or acting related issues. I mean, clearly there wasn't much opportunity to see actors at work in any sort of depth, but I became fascinated with, the process of the construction of the film, and consequently ended up quite quickly following a path that went in that direction. Soon after that, I got work on a movie in New Zealand, Race for the Yankee Zephyr. I joined the electrical crew and spent the first half of that movie working with them. We were doing all the interiors for the movie, and then about halfway through, we went exterior, where there was a greater need for more personnel on the camera side, less in the lighting department. And so I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to start working with the camera team halfway through the movie. And that really led to me taking a pretty distinct step in that direction.
And then what was the first thing you DP'd, if you can walk a little further down that path?
I was in Australia at the time. I was living there. I was working as an operator, and I actually splitting my time a little bit between the UK, but mostly in Australia. And I working as an operator, as I said, doing movies and commercials a little, and I wanted to make the transition into DPing. And I got the opportunity in commercials to do that with a couple of directors who I developed a pretty good relationship with. That was my first taste of it. And then did that for a while, probably 2 or 3 years, just to develop my skill set. And clearly working commercials as a cinematographer, one of the advantages is you get a very broad range of experience, and in a lot of different mediums, a lot of different styles, and you can really cut your teeth on really trying techniques and experimenting, and also failing, which is hugely important part of the process. Hopefully not on too grand a scale, but small failures really point you in the right direction. So doing commercials was great. I really got a taste of what I was interested in, what I was able to achieve, and where my skills were. And probably, as I say, 3 or 4 years after that, did my first movie, which was a film in Wales, in the west of the UK, called The James Gang, which Mike Barker directed. And that was my first cinematography drama experience.
So I guess moving forward to the movie of the day, Godzilla x Kong, I assume you working on Godzilla versus Kong played some role in you getting X Kong. So if you could talk about how you first got involved with Godzilla versus Kong and sort of what that process was like.
Yeah, I can tell you, I was called by Eric McLeod, who is the line producer on Godzilla versus Kong, and I'd worked with him on a few films prior. Unstoppable was probably the first experience we'd had together, and he called me and said, "Listen, I'd love you to come and meet Adam Woodgard. He's directing this movie. I think you guys will get on great." And so that was the introduction to Adam. I went in there, met him. We got on great. Sort of seemed we spoke the same language, came from similar backgrounds in terms of low budget movies. And, the interview part of the process is hugely important. It's probably worth saying that it's an interesting part of the journey, because you in a very short space of time, you have to feel each other out and try and sort of project forward to see if you're going to have a really constructive, creative working collaboration. And it's it's quite a hard thing to do in the space of an interview. You end up spending up to a year working incredibly intensely on a whole sort of range of levels. That relationship, director DP relationships, one of the most intense and creative. So we got on, and a lot of it is, from instinct. We got on really well, and it proved a success. And to your point, that led me to being asked to do the next movie.
I'm always curious about this question when we have someone who's worked on two films in a franchise, especially the first and the second. Is your approach going into the second movie, was it from a visual language sort of standpoint? Is it trying to is it the continuity from before, or are you trying to reestablish, make a new look, to try something very new, or a little bit?
We had a very distinct sort of plan going into the second film. Adam was very, very keen to make a movie that was really had a heightened reality, driven by large part from a sort of very colorful palette, very very pushed colors and very high degree of sort of saturation in the film. And that was a distinct sort of starting point for him. We then, through talking through it, realized and made a decision that one of the problems with going down that particular route was the potential trap of falling into a space, particularly with a movie that's very reliant on CG, falling into a space of approaching animation, or something that feels very animated at least. So in conjunction with developing this, very colorful palette plan, we also addressed the issue that we needed to try and find some grittiness and a sort of visceral quality to the visualization that would balance this colorful setting, in also bearing in mind that you're in an imagined world, an imagined space that had also necessitated a sort of necessitated some degree of having a tangible feel to it. It needed to feel identifiable as somewhere that it was associated with, the world as we know it, the planet. So it was a hybrid. It sort of needed, as you know from the film, it had elements in it that we relate to and understand and make sense as it's the planet we know, but it was a part of the planet that we don't know, and it's
Right.
obviously pure fantasy.
The new empire, as it were.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about like working with, or talking about how there's a big CG component to this movie, and I guess I was wondering if you could walk us from a cinematographer's point of view of what that collaboration between those teams looks like.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, because out of the initial conversations with Adam, a huge point that we wanted to address was we were developing a look for the live action photography part of the movie, and we were very, very keen, that we maintained an aesthetic that transcended, the CG and the live action. And I became really fixated on this. And the first part of that journey, we developed in conjunction with Panavision and Dan Sasaki there some bespoke anamorphic lenses that he built for us for the movie. And they were, particularly interesting in terms of their optical sort of fall off and, chromatic sort of variations and aberrations. And we really wanted to push that. And to that end, went quite far with some of the lenses. But one thing I've been very aware of on these sort of movies is the huge difference between, the live action elements and the CG elements that can happen, the sort of that disassociation and these two worlds which just pull you out of the movie. So I was really, really keen that we address that in every way we can. So we sort of approached that particular problem on a few fronts, but predominantly the first stage of that was making sure the visual effects artists had a plan to emulate what we'd done with the photography. And so we got our visual effects supervisor, Alessandro, on board and said, look, this is what we're doing in the photography. How are we going to address this in the CG? And he was great, very collaborative, came on board and said, look, I'll put my thinking hat on and basically come up with an idea. And we gave him the lens prescriptions, and he developed an approach based on that, which he could then hand over to the artists, and had a sort of system that emulated what we'd done. So that was stage one, and they were great. They initially, the studio were a little nervous, to be sort of going down a route of degenerating, these spectacular images that were hugely complex, and the instinct is sometimes to refine them as much as possible. But we soon realized the benefit of the sort of deconstructive process. So we did that, and then the next part of it was just to take that a step further. We decided to do a scan back, and basically once the digital work was done, we filmed it out onto negative, and then rescan that to give us a sort of filmic quality that added to the marriage of the two sort of languages, all with the intent of just giving us a feeling that it all came from the same place as much as possible.
When you're shooting on set, how planned out are your shots? Like, are you storyboarding? Are you shot listing? And are you actually following that shot list, or is it just sort of a springboard, I guess?
It varies a lot. Obviously, the sequences that have a lot of overlap of CG and live action, where the integration on the day is necessary, where there's real integration between the CG characters and the humans in terms of cause and effect sort of stuff, that generally has more storyboard work. Adam and I tend not to work with boards. We've developed a language where we have quite a simple approach and an instinctive approach to what we want. There'll obviously be discussions and plans around, specific shots and setups and coverage we'll need, but we tend to come from a similar place and a complementary place where we find we can come to an agreement pretty quickly and easily in terms of our stylistic and logistical approach. So not a lot of storyboarding in general.
In, say, like a very CG heavy, say, fight sequence in Hollow Earth, like with no humans, or just say some Kong, what are you as the cinematographer? Are you just providing are you talking to the visual effects people being like, this is what I want? Or basically, what are you bringing to like the incredibly CG heavy sequences I was thinking while I was watching the movie yesterday?
It varies a lot, to be honest. What I like to do is be as involved in the storyboards for the CG sequences as much as possible, because the time frame sometimes prohibits my availability for that, because I'm obviously involved with prepping the live action, where those guys can be going full throttle with previses and that sort of stuff. I guess it's two-tiered. There's definitely a very distinct discussion about the visual language of the movie that needs to have some degree of consistency in it. So that comes from really Adam and my discussions, and then the visual effects have to pick up on that, because obviously the complexity for them is there are a lot of different artists and vendors working on the visual effects world, the CG work, and that, you know, a need for consistency and consistent language is important. So most of what I do is sort of at the beginning of making sure that there's a rule book that's stuck to. I also have a concept artist that I work with who basically paints scenes, and it's predominantly for me, it's to understand the lighting logic of fantasy places, how the lights work, where the light emanates from, and I develop a sort of a lookbook for that, and that's given to the CG team and the artists, so that again there's logic and the you know, the lighting sort of approach throughout the film. When actually, as it comes down to them working, that they then tend to go off there. That's a separate thing that's going on, while starts towards the end of the shooting, but goes on obviously throughout post as the development and the building of the CG shots and those sequences. So I'm less involved in that part of it, and hopefully the idea is that we've established a clear enough language and rule book that can remain consistent through the process.
And the line being, whenever practical sets or live action actors are involved, you are suddenly very involved. And I'm just curious, like, if then there's a shot where Kong is sticking his finger out, and then there's the girl, so then that's definitely, you're very involved. And then, like, what are you looking at on set as you're shooting that, I guess?
Well, that's always interesting, because, you know, there's a plan. Those sequences, as I said, are storyboarded to some degree, but you end up in these sort of sequences being surrounded by a lot of green and a lot of tennis balls on sticks for eye lines and laser pointers, and you know, it's probably more of a challenge for the actors, because they're having to imagine, you know, these characters and interact with them. We're looking at them and looking at the setting for them, and just trying, you develop an ability to project forward and imagine the environment as much as possible, and where different elements will sit and how they'll interact with the actors. So you're really shooting those sequences with often very little at all. Clearly, some of them are just against green and nothing else. Sometimes you're in locations where, you know, vast parts of the location will be rebuilt in CG. So, you know, the key is to really be as unlimited as you can in terms of your imagination, but also at the same time, you know, try and have a concept of a real space that you can you learn to sort of judge and ascertain how that space works, and how the actors relate to that space, and how the CG characters will relate to that space. And a lot of it is just instinct. You get a feel for things. You'll pick the rule book up and say, well, you should be looking up here because that's where Kong would be. You look at the shot and you say, well, it just looks wrong. It doesn't make sense. You know, the look should be over here. It's much better. Even though we know, you know, technically on paper it should be like this, it just doesn't feel right. And there's a lot of those discussions go on. You're creating images, which half of which is in front of you and half of which is in your imagination.
So Parth, am I more of a Godzilla or more of a Kong?
Oh yeah, I guess we should ask the question: Who's more Godzilla? Who's more Godzilla? Who's more Kong? Between the two of us.
I think no offense, it seems kind of obvious.
What's your answer?
You're Godzilla and I'm Kong.
That's intriguing.
Because when I look at Godzilla and when I look at Kong, there's no doubt in my mind that Godzilla is stronger and should be able to beat Kong.
Aww.
And then it's only like circumstance that allows Kong to survive or like keep up, like him having the weapon or like him having like the fist, like gets a metal fist contraption. And I think that speaks volumes. And it's just because like you have that like nuclear breath like spray thing, and it's just like
whenever Trent gets me too mad, I do tend to like breathe fire.
It's like, how could anyone ever compete with that? So it just like when I look at both of their like amounts of power from a distance, you clearly it's like to give you like the less powerful figure would just be like naive.
Wow, this is so kind of you. I
Kind
appreciate
is
it.
An interesting word. It's like brutally honest, observant.
Well, if our listeners are very observant,
do you
they'll
agree?
know. Yeah, no, I would agree. I'm the more powerful of the two of us, more astute, more just generally.
I don't know if anyone's making note of Godzilla's astuteness.
Well, you know, since we're here, we might as well. Yeah, I guess I agree. But is it uncouth to agree?
No, I think everyone would understand. Well, it seems like you've had enough of this Godzilla X Kong talk, and that's good because maybe so is the listener at home. Because
the real answer is my dad just finished cooking some chicken curry, and Parth is hungry, and he's gonna go see a movie in New Brunswick with his friend Trent later, and he kind of wants to do that on a full stomach.
No, that all makes sense. Okay, so Parth's sick of done. He's Godzilla versus Kong Dao. And so next week we'll just, we'll talk about the rest of Ben Seresin's filmography. It'll be like super cool.
Or whatever.
It'll be like part 2 next week, 7 days from now.
I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck either. And so here's how little we give a fuck. You go here, don't try to find us on Instagram or Twitter at Craft Services Pod. Wow. And then also don't listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Because I don't fucking care.
Yeah, definitely don't give us like a really good fucking rating. Like, I don't fucking care if you do that. Don't tell your friends about us. Again, we literally could not give less of a shit. We're going to see the movie tonight. We don't fucking care, dude. Do what you want. Not our fucking podcast. I mean, it is, but like, is it?
Frankly, Parth, I give so little a shit. I think we should just stop fucking recording right now.
All right, really?
I just want to walk away from this microphone.
You really frankly think that? The problem with this joke is that it's a visual joke and can never translate to the pod.
And it's because I've never seen the movie Frank. All right,
I keep changing my virtual background to things that make Trent laugh, and I change it to a poster of the movie Frank.
Whenever I say the word Frank, like, all right, Parth, like, I don't care anymore, dude. I'm just gonna march out of here. So,
all right, I'm gonna go have some chicken curry, guys. Have fun. Good night, everybody.
I'm just gonna walk away from the microphone.
No, Trent, you gotta press stop recording on Audacity. No, he's walking away. Oh God,
what nice pants he's wearing. Oh God. Oh God. Bye, guys.